Okay, so I'm continuing the next morning. I only have so much space, and it took forever to upload stuff. Anyway, he left off with me standing in the room looking at him. He immediately, I was standing at the foot of the bed, and my mom walked up to him, and she was holding his hand, and she started rubbing his forehead. She says, "Chris, do you understand that we're here?" She says, "Rebecca and I are here." And he just kind of looked at her and he started to shake his head. She says, "Don't shake your head, don't." She says, "Your neck, they think it's broken." And she just kept asking questions. She told him to blink once for yes and twice for no, and he was able to answer some basic questions, but he just kept kind of going back to sleep. The nurse took me out to her little workstation thing and was asking me questions. They, like, what's his actual name? I guess they had him under some other weird name. It was Edward something. I'm going, why would she name him Edward? That's like an odd thing. He doesn't even look like that. Maybe it just stands for, something like they know that's a major trauma or something. I asked her, I said, "What's the extent of his injuries?" And she said, his arm, the lower arm on the right is broken into a million pieces, it seems like. She says, he just really busted it really bad. The upper arm is broken at least once. They said, but it's so swollen they can't get a good clean shot of it. There's a deep gash in his leg. She says it's really huge. She says it comes from the front of his thigh all the way to the back. It's just this big, like, L shape. And she said there's a deep gash from about his belly button all the way around to his back. She says they finally got him in to do the scan on his neck, and his neck is broken in a couple of places. But other than a little bit of road rash and some bruising, that's all he really has going. And she says he's what we call trauma stable. She says he's not out of the doghouse yet. He could still go the other way really fast. She says, but right now, we have no reason to believe he wouldn't be getting any better. She says, but he did lose a lot of blood, and there's an awful lot of swelling. She says the only thing that he's had done as far as, fixing him has been to sew up those two gashes, and they put some drains in because there was just so much fluid already. And she says he's right now he's probably going to be okay. She says it's going to depend on him, and so he's going. She says the surgeons that are on his team are the best in the area, so just know that he's got the best working on him. And she led me back in there, and I was in there for about 2 minutes, and I walked up to him, and I was holding his hand, and my mom was on the other side of the bed. She had been yelling at him. She kept reminding him, "You got babies at home, you got a baby on the way, you got a wife that cares about you, you know better than to be on that road and doing stupid things." And we didn't know that it wasn't his fault. As far as we knew, it was just stupidity. My brothers had gone up on their way home after they first came to the hospital, and there was a highway patrolman that pulled up behind them and was asking them what they were doing, and it turned out that was a highway patrolman that was still on shift from the accident, and the one who did the report in his report he said that Chris was speeding and just lost control. That he initially hit the guardrail coming around a really heavy turn, and he just he skid down the guardrail, probably about 100 feet, and went another 150 feet just rolling on the ground. The guardrail hadn't been there. That particular area, there was like a 200-foot drop, just straight down, because it's a mountain road. And his bike just kind of rode the guardrail all the way down to the end. It went quite a ways, and it was still upright. It was leaning on the rail. His bike was in a lot better shape than he was. And my brothers took pictures of the chunks that they left on the guardrail of my husband, and all the blood and everything from the point of impact all the way down to where you could see his body was. Of course, there's spray paint to let you know where everything was too. And they kept trying to show me pictures, but I couldn't do it at that point. That was too much. Just seeing him the way he was. I didn't want to see some gory photos of the accident. And I didn't want to know exactly where yet. I knew it was up on the mountain. But anyway, so I was explaining it to him, and I was holding his hand and saying, they said you hit the guardrail and things like that. And I said, last night, before you went into surgery, you said something about a deer. Do you remember a deer? And he blinked twice for no. He couldn't remember the deer right off. And they said later on that day they were going to go in and fix his neck. And she said the spinal surgeon will be in here in a couple hours. She says if you want to go get something to eat before you go, or if you just want to sit here, that's fine. She went over us having a password, so that, only the people who knew the password could come in to see him. She said it's best to have the password so he's not just bombarded with constant visitors, because he really needs to rest. And she says, and it takes us away from our job if we're constantly answering the phone and having to ask a bunch of questions, or be asked a bunch of questions about, what's going on, how is he doing, stuff like that. If they couldn't give the password, then they just would be redirected to the people who had a password. And so they did all that. I got the password and everything, and we sat there for a while, and after talking to him, he fell back asleep. I had moved down to the foot of the bed because I was putting some lotion on his feet because they were so bruised and they were so dry. That's something that, I never knew his feet were that bad, and they were that bad normally, because he was in socks and boots. And I asked, I said, did his boots come off in the accident? She says, no, those were taken off. That's from him not taking care of his feet. So I was rubbing lotion on him when suddenly he just kind of woke up, and it's just, he was panicking. He didn't understand where he was or anything else. And I remember my mom just leaning back down on him, holding him down, and saying, Chris, you've been in an accident. You need to not move. She says, your neck is broken. She says, your arm is broken. She says, you're in bad shape. You need to just lay still. She says, stop trying to fight it. And he was panicking because, he wasn't breathing on his own. He had a machine forcing him to breathe, even though he could. But they're keeping him so sedated, they wanted to make sure he continued to breathe. And that was when they had to break the straps out and really, tie him down. I just remember standing there just crying, thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to end up killing himself. The accident didn't do it, but, him being in a hospital bed, unable to move, is going to irritate him so bad he's going to just get up and because he kept trying to rip out his IVs and things like that. I was so grateful my mom was standing there, because she knew just to hold him down and force him. She says, it's better that I hold him down and keep him from, further major injury, make him a little sore, than to just let him get up and do all kinds of damage. And he did have a collar on, but you're not supposed to move. His neck hadn't been fixed yet, so it was still a really bad break. It could have been, if he had moved around, could have made it worse and paralyzed himself. And so yeah, we got him to settle down. I went up to him and I looked at him and I explained it all to him again. I told him I loved him, and he just, again, his eyes just started to water, and he just looked at me so helpless. And he just started to cry. I told him, I said, I know, honey, but you're gonna be okay. But you gotta do what you're told. I know it's scary, but I'm right here for you. I'm not gonna leave. I'm right here.